Yo guys, it's Vin, and this is my guide on how to master stage control. Now, the title is a little bit misleading. I'm not going to teach you how to master stage control in just one video because it takes a lot of time, and again, stage control, like any fighting game, is a really complex and broad topic, so I'm going to do my best to narrow it down, define it, and give you a few tangible tips to improve your use of stage control. And again, this is really basic. As always, don't take what I say here and spread it like the law, like everyone will understand what you're saying. Because again, I don't know everything about stage control, because if I did, I would be way better as a player. Now, with that out of the way, what is stage control? Now, definitions will vary on different levels of play, but I like to say it's using your position on the map to restrict your opponent's options to make it easier to read and build damage on them, while simultaneously making it harder for them to hit you. Now, that's just a long-winded way of me saying that being in the center of stage is good. Now, this is important for many different reasons. On the most basic level, if you're in the center of the stage, you're farther away from the blast zone. So, if you are in the air, for example, you're closer to this side of the blast zone, and it's easier to kill you off the top. Obviously, if you're on this end of the stage, I hit a D-Light Sarah at 170, it will kill you. At the center of the stage, it probably won't. Now, again, different players will tell you different things, but I like to divide it into, like you just saw, the horizontal plane and the vertical plane. Now, let's start with the horizontal side of stage control. Again, if you're on this side of the stage, you're closer to this end of the blast zone, but also it makes it easier to hit your opponent. If you push your opponent to the end of the map and you attack them, there's only a few ways where they can go. Now, they can stand still and spot dodge, but this is probably very easy to do if someone who's like playing Axe or something and then they just fall down with the Sarah. You've probably done this before, you just spot dodge and then punish them. However, if you're on the ground like this, if you throw a move like Sword Sidelight, it probably has a good chance at catching it, and especially if you do a multi-hit move like running up to them and Sword Endlight, they're not going to spot dodge through this whole thing. Now, standing still and spot dodging in general is one of the less good options you can do. At higher levels, you're not going to see it as much. Now, one of the other options is they can go out if they're on the end of the stage. They go like this, right? They run away from you if you throw a Sword Sidelight. Now, yes, you avoided it, but now you're in edgeguard scenario. In higher levels of play, you see pros don't really drop edgeguards very often. Again, this is not an edgeguarding guide, but you know, that's just food for thought. Now, they can actually go through you by attacking back, or they can also go like up and over you when you throw out this attack to avoid it. And this is actually kind of the one that you want. If you see that your opponent, if you walk up to your opponent or you throw out a move and your opponent just kind of stuffs you out by trying to hit you back, this is good because you know that your opponent is going to look out for this. So what you can actually do is walk up to them, push them on the stage control. They assume that you're going to attack them. They throw out a move, you step back, and then you punish therewith. Again, like I said, the other option that they can do is they can go up and over you, and in my opinion, this is probably one of the better options, probably better than just trying to stuff you out because it's less risky. However, it still isn't great because it actually allows you to read your opponent who's jumping. Again, let's say I am in the center of the stage and I walk up to them. Instead of running up to me and trying to hit me, they jump over me and assume that I'm going to attack like this, and they want to punish my side lane, right? Well, next time, let's say they do punish me. Next time I walk up to them, they jump over, and I do a jump stare. Now again, you're not a robot. You're not going to be catching this theoretical stage control read every single time. Let's say you walk up to them and you try to hit them with a jump stare or a dash jump stare. Sometimes, you know, your opponent will understand that you're going for this, or they have enough time to react. So let's just say, one, they jump out of it, right? They do another jump. Now, they are closer to the center of the stage, so it does look like they have more stage control than you. Because one, you're in recovery frames, and you're also closer to the blast zone than them. However, this isn't necessarily true. They may have horizontal stage control, but they don't really have it in that vertical plane that we talked about earlier. Now, let me just ask you a question. What is the difference, or what is the advantage of being on the ground versus being in the air? Well, on a basic level, I have advantage because I can use all of my grounded kit. I can use my SIGs, my light attacks without having to GC, and I also have the liberty of being able to jump up and use my aerials and fall down and use my aerials. However, the person who's in the air, they don't have access to all of that. They have to come back to the ground eventually too, because again, if I do a jump here, I can just return to the ground. Whereas if I'm here, I'm stuck here, and every option I use is one less I have. See how my sweat beads come up? I'm out of options, and now my opponent can catch me. This is kind of the basis of where juggling comes from. Basically, how this relates to vertical stage control is when you send someone in the air, your main goal is you kind of just want to maintain pressure on them, whether that be through your attacks or your movement. Now, let's just take a step back. Obviously, when you attack somebody, they have to try and avoid it. I mean, or else they're gonna get hit. But the thing is that if I send this Bobo in the air, and let's say I do that in air, and let's just say he dodged it, well, it doesn't really matter because it's actually better for him, because I am in recovery frames because I missed, and although he used his dodge, he's actually closer to the ground now, and now he can juggle me. But the reason why that this is actually very useful is you can condition your opponent to think that you are going to send out an attack. So remember, I'm the one closer to the ground, so I can just return to reset my options, whereas every time he does an option, that's one less that he has. So when I send this Bobo in the air, maybe one time I'll jump, and then I'll just fastball down to the ground. If every time before I was actually doing a jump nair like this, he's probably going to just spot dodge, or waste a jump, or do like a recovery or anything because he thinks I'm going to attack him, but in reality I jumped and then I fast fell. Now that's one less option that he has. Next time, I can just go up and try to hit him because let's say he used his dodge and I know exactly where he's going to be. That is a very basic rundown of juggling, but it's very relevant for vertical stage control because you have the ground below you, and when used right, you can perfectly bait out their options without committing to much. I had the pleasure of talking to my good friend Reviled. He is a 2500 Yumiko main, and he actually talks about active stage control versus passive stage control. Now, this isn't personally how I would define it, but again, like I said, everyone has a different definition of it, and this is how he likes to see it, so I think it's really worth sharing. Active stage control is when you use your attacks to move your opponent to gain stage control, because you're actively taking it away from them. For example, if I do a sword D-light stare, I pushed him away from the center of the stage. Passive is, like we said before, when you move yourself to gain stage control. If I'm in the center here, I walk up to him, and now I have this mind game where I can either use a multi-hit move, like end light or side light. I can read him going off, I can read him going into me, backdash, and then punish, or I can read his jump, like that. Now let's just stick with active stage control for a second, because it's a little bit more straightforward, because you're throwing out a hitbox that, when done correctly, your opponent has to respect. For example, sword side light. Not to mention that if you hit them with the attack, your opponent is locked in stun, so obviously they can't contest you, which allows you to create a lot of space without a lot of thinking. I put him on D-light stare, and this will throw him outwards to the stage, and now he has to return. You can edge guard him or whatever. D-light dare doesn't send them very far. You can send them off the stage, but for example, if he was a little bit closer, like that, I bounce him off the bottom, I don't really get that much stage control, but I do get pretty consistent reads from here. So there is advantages of both D-light dare and D-light stare. Now, one more advantage of D-light stare is that many players will dodge in a more predictable manner because they want to return to center stage. For example, if I D-light stare, a lot of impatient players will actually dodge in immediately, which allows me to read that and put further pressure on them. Whereas if I D-light dare, let's just say like pretend from the center of the stage, I'm not really sending him very far from the middle, so he could honestly dodge any way he wants and he would still be able to reset to neutral. And although I've only been talking about sword this whole time, this applies to some other weapons combo starters as well. For example, bow D-light nair versus D-light stare. Also, orb side light D-light versus side light stare. Now, active stage control doesn't start when you decide to do the move or after your combo starter, but some single moves in Brawlhalla are also very good at applying pressure. Take for example, which I mentioned a moment ago, sword side light. It's not a traditional combo starter, and you're not really deciding where you send them, like a D-light where you can choose a D-light stare follow-up or a D-light dare follow-up. It's just one move. But it covers so much area. And like I said before, if you throw it out in this area, your opponent has to respect it. If they don't do anything, they're gonna get hit by the side light, which forces them to react, which means that you can read it later. But being able to land these attacks isn't really the hardest part, because it requires good positioning to do in a safe manner. Now this leads me to passive stage control. Now the first easiest way to improve your passive stage control game is just by standing in the center of the stage or moving up to the center. You'll see so many people in Brawlhalla be passive, right? They'll stand on these ends of the stage and not do anything. Corner players, if you will. And although you are fairly safe, you're not really doing anything, or you're not getting any damage done on your opponent. Remember, Brawlhalla is a game about punishing, not attacking, and the main goal is to kill your opponent 3 times, not to spend 8 minutes doing this, right? I'm not saying that when you move up to the center, you have to attack right away. You're not going to be throwing out sidelights all the time, because that's just being impatient. The main point of moving up to the center is to put pressure on your opponent so that they react and you punish their reaction the next time. Now, let's just take a second and look at what I accomplished by moving up to the center of the stage. Again, like I said before, I can just throw out moves like this and they have to respect it, but also look at me. I cut the stage in half. If this person runs up to me and tries to attack me, I'm not running off the stage, right, like he is. If he tries to attack me, I can just back up like this, and I have all this space to move. Now back to what I said about punishing people's reactions. If you move up here, you don't have to throw out a move. You can just walk here and see what your opponent does. The less experienced opponent will say, oh, he's close to me, I can just throw out a move like this. And like I said, you can either back up or just do anything to punish them. A more experienced player won't react if they don't have to. You may have to kind of bait them a little bit harder by walking up to them a little closer before doing your move. Also, if your opponent is just short hopping like this on one end of the stage, because again, not everyone is just going to be standing here doing this. You're going to have jumpy opponents like this. If you walk up to them, it's not like they're just going to float past you, right? They're going to try to hit you because they feel the pressure of you being right up to them. Now, many players in Brawlhalla will like to drift one way in the air and do the exact opposite last second. For example, if I'm coming back to the stage and I see this Bodvar is here ready to punish me, I can expect him to punish, jump last second, and then punish his whiff. Now, in this case, this is something that you should really look for, because a lot of people will, if they're in this position where they're just short hopping, they're gonna jump, right? They're gonna wait for your move, and they're gonna fall back down to the corner to punish you. In this case, you walk up to them, and you can capitalize so that they see that they can't land on top of you, right? If they land on top of you, they're just gonna do their move, right? So then they burn their options, they float whatever, and eventually they're going to land back to the corner because it's where they feel safe. And you can just catch their landing like that. Also, you know, they may not return to the corner. Like I said, not everyone's the same. You push up to them, sometimes they jump, they burn their options, and they land to the center, which you just catch it like that. This is why I believe in the ideal scenario, you should really never be afraid of someone returning back to the stage like this if you're on the edge, because you're not the one who has limited options. You don't have to do anything. They have to return to the ground. They'll either return to the wall, return here, or return past you. One more tip I have to better utilize passive stage control is to stop throwing yourself off the stage every single time you're in an edgeguard scenario. Of course, if they're burning options and you know that you can catch them as they have nothing left, or they dodge into the stage or something, which cancels their dodge, then sure, edgeguard them, dash jump, ground pound, dash jump, dare, whatever your weapon has, go do that. But realistically, not every edgeguard will be this easy. Sometimes they'll land in a way that's really close to the end of the stage, like this, and they can just immediately get off. Or they can even dodge up. More experienced players will often dodge up to bait you out, and now they've reversed the edgeguard situation. You're off stage, and now they're on the edge. But also, you don't always have to take someone off stage. If you look at a lot of pro gameplay, people like Sandstorm, who are amazing offstage, well, he's amazing at everything, but you get the point. Scythe, right? It's even like weapons like Scythe, where it's just so strong offstage, and you have these players who are really good and they know what to look for. They don't go for it every single time, because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You don't see this and you do this, right? Edgeguarding is really finicky and it's really difficult to learn. So oftentimes you don't want to push a punish where it doesn't exist. Don't go for it if it doesn't feel right. Apply all your pressure by just being on the edge and threatening them with safe attacks. Because again, they're the ones they have to come to you. They have the wall slip mechanic. And again, no one's really going to be slipping off the wall with the 3 exclamation points, but you get the point. They have to come back eventually. Now, don't just dash jump ground pound or dash jump dare every single time. Because if you're here, what do you have? You have an N light, you have a D light on sword. If you're on bow, you can like bow jump dare. On orb too, you can jump dare. Anything that can kind of like cover like this diagonal area here, it puts pressure on them, and when they come back, they're going to move around it, and now that you know that they're going to move around it, you can actually punish them with like a jump scare or something. Or they go through you, you just end like this. Again, this isn't an edge guarding guide, but it's just food for thought. Pressure on the edge with safe moves, it pushes them into other scenarios and you can punish those. The last tip of the video that I have is to stop jumping so much. Now, again, like we already said before, jumping restricts your options in multiple ways. It locks you in active frames and it also restricts your grounded kit. This is really important because, like I said in the beginning of the video, you're going to be killing, not later in terms of health, but it's going to take longer to kill your opponent because you're building less damage. Your main true combo starters like Sword D-Light, Orb Sidelight, Bow D-Light, anything like that, they're going to start from your grounded kit. By landing only aerial stray hits, you're going to be lowering your damage potential by a lot. Someone on the ground can use both their grounded and their aerial kit. And it's also really hard to return to the ground to attack without burning a dodge. One of the ways that a lot of high-level players do it is if they're here, they'll burn their dodge like this to get to the ground. Whereas if they were already on the ground, they could just throw out the sidelight like that. This is also something that your opponent can read, jumping like this. So if you have the chance, please just try to stay on the ground because it gives your opponent one less thing to look for and kind of download about your playstyle. And trust me, it really matters. These little details, especially when you get to diamonds or above. Okay guys, that's pretty much all I had to say. I say it like it wasn't a lot. That was a lot of information, I know. Please feel free to add it to your watch later. Keep watching the video over and over again. Remember, I need those watch hours. Okay, don't worry about that. That's just the YouTube side of me talking. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.